So those of you that are watching the recording, it's December. It's also Triple T number 101. Whoop, whoop.
Exciting.
The Triple T on December 5th, 2023. My name is TJ Zebel. I like to refer to myself as a professional problem solver, which I always have to follow up with. No, I don't know everything, but I have a unique way of asking questions and helping people find the solutions that they're looking for. And if we can't find them, I have a wonderful network of people that I can refer to, pick brains from, and all of the above. I want to say hello to those of you watching live on YouTube. Hi, Mom. And all the YouTube etiquette stuff, please click subscribe, ring the bell, leave comments, then comment on your comments and comment on other people's comments. And let's just have a little comment frenzy. I also have a website, the TSWB, the Tall Skinny White Boy. Yes, that is actually what it stands for. I had somebody just this past week question me again. For real? I'm like, truth in advertising. Yep, 6'4", two bills. And for those of you joining in, great to see familiar faces. Make sure you've got your questions and topics ready for the second hour. Those of you watching for the very first time or watching the recording, if this is your first one, platform here on Triple T, first hour, I've got 3 topics that we try really hard to try and squeeze into an hour. And the second hour, we open up open mic, open platform. Anybody got any special topics or questions? That is a time to bring them up because I like to learn as well. I also like to start off the meetings with asking those of you on the feed anything exciting news to share, ahas, epiphanies during the last 7 days?
I'll share. This is more in the last 7 minutes, but for those of you who don't get here early and get the TJ wisdom, we were just talking about my sleep problems, and he helped me come to an amazing realization, and that was that a big part of why I don't want to get up during the day is because I crave approval, and I've been getting a lot of, small things, disapproval, whatever, from people. And it's kind of the point of, well, if I'm not going to get my needs met, then why on earth would I get up? So, but kind of the other part of this is, I'm ashamed to have that need and to call it a need too. I shouldn't need that. That was my immediate response. And so kind of one of the takeaways that I'm still processing, but one of the takeaways I'd say is, don't be ashamed of your needs. It's okay to need things, and it's okay to get them met, and it's okay to ask people to help you out with that. And you might be surprised what not getting it is doing to you and what getting it might do for you as well.
Oh, thanks for sharing that.
I love that you shared that, Holly. A couple months back, Jade had mentioned that, and the way she had said it, it hit me differently also, because I'm only going to speak for me. The way that I grew up, it was kind of thinking your needs come last. Everybody else comes before you, and you shouldn't have any needs because everybody else is more important than you. So it can kind of feel shameful to have wants and needs, even though part of your brain is going, but I matter too. And it's very interesting to have it continue to shift and to find that balance of giving and receiving, and having those wants and needs and giving them to others, and also receiving them to be fulfilled. Beautifully shared. Thank you, Holly.
Awesome. Well, that leaves 2.
Well, I had a birthday on Sunday.
Oh,
66
hey,
years.
Happy birthday, man.
Thank you. 66 years. Didn't it go by in a blink?
21 with 45 years of experience?
Yeah, it's the 45th anniversary of my turning 21.
I almost remember that birthday. Well, in fact, no, I do remember it quite well because I got a lot of local bartenders mad at me because that was back in the day when Minnesota then decided that they were going to raise the drinking age from 18 to 21, and they were going to change it September 1st. So if you were born before September 1st, you were grandfathered in and you could drink from 18 on. If you were born after September 1st, 1967, you got to wait till you were 21. And my birthday's September 12th. And I can say it now, but I started bartending when I was 17. So, being 6'4", already bartending, the vast majority of the bartenders in the area assumed that I had made the cut. I played the game quite well. And then when I turned 21, I went in for my birthday drinks, which is common around there. And they realized that for a few years, I've been playing dangerously, and they were not happy. And I said, hey, we made it. We did good.
Well, in celebration of my dotage, I'm wearing my Mr. Rogers sweater tonight.
Cardigans are amazing. I fully support them.
You're always welcome in my
Won't you be
neighborhood.
my neighbor?
Yes, you're always welcome in my neighborhood, my friend. All right. Anything else before we dive into this week's topics?
My TEDx is in 48 hours. So send lots of good energy, please. As I mentally picture all of Triple T in the audience in this entire group. So send good energy, please.
Lots of good energies, and the fact that, well, I'm just going to say it. Even if you, by your standards, suck, it's going to be awesome for the people there. And I know you're not going to suck, so it's going to be awesome for the people there.
Thank you. Crossing everything.
Yes.
So thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, topics that showed up for this week: protective empathy, chronic complainers, and deserving of love. Protective empathy. This one came out of a quote that I had heard and tried to find to write down and did not find it, but it was basically, when you've worked on yourself enough, you find it hard to get mad at people because you suddenly understand that somewhere inside there's a story and it has nothing to do with you. And it struck me as protective empathy. You look at some people that have been working on themselves long enough, and even I'm not saying that they never get angry, because we are living the human experience, but it's much easier for them to say, wow, I feel sorry for that person. They're so angry. Whereas the majority of sleeping people, we'll call them, are just like, what a jerk. Oh my God, I can't believe he said that to me. I hope that I just want to beat him silly. And when you look at them and you go, yeah, but do you know what they're going through? No, do you? No, but I do know that they're hurting. Well, sounds like you are too. I'm fine. And we know those people that when you hear I'm fine, danger, Will Robinson, danger. You okay? I'm fine. I'm going to go sleep in the shop. Sometimes the question is, how do you get to the point of protective empathy, though? And it has a lot to do with working on yourself. The more you understand where your anger comes from, you start understanding that there are a whole lot of people out there like you. And if they're anything like you, there's a chance that there's somewhere in there, there's a story that made them as angry as you were for a while. And some of us back in the day would just get angry. We didn't know why until we started doing self-work. And then we're all like, well, I thought I forgave them for that. Well, forgiveness isn't for them, it's for you. And we forget that what they did was still effing wrong. How we react to it is our choice. And so hanging on to that anger, as they say, is like drinking poison, hoping the other person will get sick from it. Oftentimes, the other person doesn't even remember what they did to make you angry. You can bring it up to them, they're like, what, when, what? Well, that one time, and you said, and it just did. I don't even remember that. That's how much it affected them, but you've been hanging on to the energy for how long? And when you get to the point where you start being able to let go of that stuff, you start noticing empathy towards others because you've freed up enough energy to be able to feel for others and not take on. It almost becomes like a suit of armor in a way. In the healthiest way, I think. I know that Mom, for a while, got to hear me when I was extremely angry inside about a number of things. And one was losing my photography studio and everything in Minnesota. And I felt bad because I'd call her quite often. We'd start out with a great conversation, and then all of a sudden I'd just get on a topic of, and then, and she'd have to listen to me just unloading. And then when I started doing self-development work and all this type of work, all of a sudden I was like, wow. And I apologized to her. I was like, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. And she was like, yeah, a couple of them got a little heavy, honey. Right, Mom? Love you. But it made me realize that I was living so much in the past that I was missing a whole lot of the present. And it also kind of cut down my joy of looking to the future. The rearview mirror was way too big. I was holding it right here. Just looking over the side enough to be able to see where I was going. About that much. And Mark, yeah, I like that. You can forgive someone their nature, but not their actions. But you can let their actions simply go, as back to the quote from a couple of last week or the week before, scorpions do what scorpions do. They just go, that's who they are. And it's funny because one of my clients today, tomorrow they graduate Triple P, which is my new branding for the Wait to Date protocol. It's been a whole year that they've been on the protocol. And we reflected on what's happened in 365 days and how when I first told them that they had to wait a year, I got the very common, typical pushback. Oh, what? I've been trying to find someone this long, and now you want me to wait another year? Yeah, I do. And in that year, they've met 4 of the, oh my God, it's the perfect one. Oh. Yeah, and then all of a sudden, the flags started popping up, and well, I said, yeah, that was the best one so far. Sure enough, a little bit later, guess what? I met the perfect one. Oh, so far. And in that year, they also built up a lot of protective empathy for their ex, for their angry kids, for their past suitors, we'll say. And they realized that each time they met the perfect one, they had stepped up and up. And now when we reflected back, they were trying to find somebody 2 years ago, but they were they were willing to accept a level 2. And they couldn't find a level 2 because they were searching and so desperate. And then they found a level 4. And the level 2s started chasing. And then they found a level 6. And then the 2s and the 4s were chasing. And then they found an 8. Now the 2s and the 4s and the 6s are all chasing, and they're everywhere, kind of like I predicted. And when they were looking back about how excited they got over a 2, a 4, and a 6, and how heartbroken they were when it didn't work out with a 2, a 4, and a 6, and an 8, they realized that they had been working on themselves so hard this last year and clearing out so much junk and limiting beliefs. And in the process, not only found a higher self-worth, but a much higher level of empathy and understanding of people. Which came first, and who manifested who? Any input, ahas, epiphanies on that so far?
I'm sure. But, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, Dr. David says you attract who you are.
No? Anybody else?
Just gonna say, so when you started when we started the conversation, we were talking about anger and empathy and that sort of thing. And my first thought is, well, fortunately, and there's a lot of reasons for this, but I haven't had to deal too much with anger. But then I started thinking about the 5 elements, and of course, anger is associated with the wood energy, grief is associated with the metal energies, and so on and so forth. And anxiety, of course, is associated with the water energy. And I just realized, just throwing this out there for anybody who might be a different element, I throw the word anxiety in that whole conversation, and it means something completely different, because that anxiety that I feel when I'm around people is just, I think, the same as the anger a lot of people feel. So, and it definitely hit really hard too. So thank you.
I love that you just pointed out about anger, Holly, because there were many a times where I would not have thought I was angry. And then suddenly when I'm starting to word vomit, the stuff that comes out of me, and to the point that I'm experiencing it. And then there's a part of me going, I did not think I was that angry. I get literally stunned about the responses that are coming out. And one thing that I often think is, especially when you see people and you're doing your best to understand how much work that you've done and that they haven't experienced the same things and that they really are doing their best. And I love TJ's quote that people are always doing the best that they can be with the tools, time, and knowledge, energy available to them. And I often think they had to be this way. They're this way because they didn't know how to cope any other way, and they don't literally know any other way. And it's not that they're stupid or they're ignorant. It's simply they truly don't know, and they really are doing their best. And it's, this ego part of you is like, how could they say that to me? And this other part of you is like, okay, I get it. It sucks for me, but yeah, I get it.
Absolutely. Thank you both for sharing.
I remember a metaphor that I haven't used very often, but something TJ said about looking backwards. If you're piloting a boat through, in my case, the Cape Cod Canal, but you're always looking backwards at the past, it doesn't matter how much muck and turbulence is behind the boat. You're not, if you're always looking backwards, how can you keep the boat off the rocks? And your metaphor with the rear view mirror, people need to turn around, and it doesn't matter what's in the past. That doesn't matter how much filth and muck is being churned up. If you turn towards the future, you can you can arrive safely at your destination.
Absolutely. Great metaphor.
I got another when you were saying that. I was just thinking, I think a lot of times when things happen to us, this gets into the forgiveness kind of question. Now this might trigger some people. I apologize for that if it does, but I believe that anything that happens to us that somebody else does, that there is a force in the universe, call it God, call it higher self, whatever, karma, whatever, that turns everything that happens to us into a growing opportunity and a life lesson, if we allow it to do so. And forgiveness is the process of turning it into that life lesson instead of holding on to it, waiting for something to be made right. And of course, I think part of that's saying I don't think this life is all that there is, but so we may not be seeing the full picture. But
I love that, Holly. Just even the way that you said that was really awesome. When you said trigger, and I know that's becoming a hot word for people, and the word triggering can also be triggering for people, of which I find ironic. Activating, I found to be a less intense word, that it activates somebody, because it really does. It just stimulates energy. But I've been substituting trigger for activating. And there was something else, and a scroll ran off with it, but I'm sure it'll come back.
Yeah, thank you both. And I like the way that Holly phrased that there's a lesson in it if we allow ourselves to see it. And that is a huge uh, hinge phrase in there. Because when I'm working with clients, yeah, there we go. If we allow ourselves to see it, when I'm working with clients, it's amazing how when I go back and have them review the tapes and all of the stuff, they still see it as the action. And when I teach them to start extracting lessons out of each situation, all of a sudden they're like, oh, and you can tell the second that they get that, they're like, oh, that's what, oh. And that's when the change begins. Lenore?
I love that. I told you Squirrel's gonna come back with it. When we allow ourselves to see it, and especially this ties back to anger. So I had mentioned last week that last week was a tougher week for me, and the Monday that the Sunday and the Monday that I had, I was just very, very vicious, and I was so angry that I could not even see any lessons. I could not, and I would not even talk to anybody about it because I was just sitting in anger, and I knew I was angry, and I was just trying to get it out because I needed it to move. And I didn't want to talk to anybody because then sometimes people will think like, oh, you'll get over it. You'll get over it. And you're like, you don't understand. And it's trying to come out of you. And then I was able to, thankfully, TJ was able to help me on Wednesday, I think it was. And because I had gotten so much out, I was much more receptive to what people were sharing with me. And it moved much, much easier. And I think that's, especially if you think there is no failure, there is feedback. And I just had very clear feedback that what I was doing may or may not have been effective. We're still out for debate, but either way, to find that lesson is important, but also to respect the fact that when you're angry, be angry and get it out and get it moving, and that's okay. And I think also, for as much as I like to think that I don't have to be angry. I don't have to experience all these emotions. I can just stay happy. I can just stay joyful. And I try to navigate around it. Then it's also, you came here for this human experience. You're going to experience everything, and you better lean in because if not, it's going to get worse. So.
Amen. Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your help.
Recently, I had heard somebody talk about a very interesting protocol towards anger, and it's right in line with what you had brought up, Lenora. But they said, give yourself a slotted amount of time to be angry so that you can burn that energy out and take what's left over to apply to something better. And so if you're going to be angry, be angry. If you have a decent, legitimate reason, feel it. In fact, one of the things that I've done with clients is be like, no, be angry. Go ahead. I want to hear you. Go ahead. And it's funny. At first, they're like, no. I'm like, yeah, go ahead. And the funny thing is, it only takes a couple of those before they can't be angry about it anymore. They're just like, that was just a stupid thing. I'm like, yes, but are you angry? Okay, I'm over it now.
I thought for sure you were going to say it just takes a couple of those before everything just comes tumbling out.
That happens as well.
I recommend if your partner is stewing on something, just get in their face. Just every time they turn around, just be there. Just invade their space. Until they get angry enough to take a swing at you. Then, the problem will come out. Well, there's a time not to duck too.
Well,
but just let them take a swing at it, and then the tears come out, and I think tears are processed, and whatever's bothering them will bubble to the surface, and they'll get it out. So just get in their way.
Maybe I'll take that with a grain of salt there. Maybe I'll do it from across the room.
That's going to depend on your partner. There are a few people with partners. I'm like, no, she's a better shot than I am, and I'll just make her go.
You should see my wife's left hook. Let me tell you.
Yeah, it's, all those things. Holly.
So once again, all these thoughts just keep popping up. Sorry, I keep talking. But another thought I had, so I don't know how many of you have read the book, oh gosh, How Emotions Are Made. It's by Guy Winch. I can't remember what it's called now. I had it 2 seconds ago. Anyway, he talks about, this is about grief, but once again, I'm thinking the 5 elements come in. It probably works for all 5. He talks about with grief that you need to go through it the first couple times. Because the first couple times you are, and he didn't put it in these words, but I'm just realizing you're extracting the lessons, you're understanding what's going on. Or another way of putting it, it's the light on your engine, you're checking it and saying, yes, I acknowledge you, what's wrong. But the problem comes when you're ruminating. So that's I've already gone through it enough times to understand it and extract the lessons, but I'm still replaying it over and over and over and over again. So when it's helping you to take action, when it's helping you to figure out the lessons, that's one thing. When you're replaying it beyond that, that's when it becomes, I think, unhealthy.
Yes. Fran.
I totally agree. I think that if you're dealing with grief, because it does keep coming back in waves, it's great to acknowledge it and to allocate it a time span and maybe even a time of day, just to acknowledge and honor that grief and gradually allow it just to be, and then the acceptance will happen more comfortably. So I totally agree with you, Holly.
Yep. Absolutely. Thank you, Fran. Well, we're over halfway through the first hour. Are we ready to tackle topic number 2? Because the holidays are coming up and we got to deal with the relatives and humans in their natural environment. And somewhere in there is going to be that chronic complainer. We all know them, been around them, kind of people that they absolutely cannot find one good thing about the day. Kind of people that they could win a $10,000 bar of gold, and they'd be like, oh, I'm not really a gold person. I'm more like a silver person, and it's so heavy. And where am I going to be able to take this? I can't buy groceries. I can't buy gas with this. Can't you give me something better? And this goes right back again to the scorpions do what scorpions do. And we have to acknowledge that and keep track of our energy. Because that type of complaining energy has what I've found to be a unique filtering in toxicity almost. You can, and it's almost, I'm at the point now where I call people out on it quite a bit, especially when it's complaining self-talk. Yeah, a few people that know me have had the privilege of me calling them out on, did you really just say that?
That one I know. I thought you meant the other one. Like when
Well,
people are complaining.
yes, I will call them out on that too.
I hate when people go, I can't complain. Well, congratulations. You can't complain. You're sorting for things to complain.
Yes.
Drives me bananas.
And then you got the ones that when you do point it out, you realize they are so comfortable and used to it. It's such a habit to them. They don't even realize that they can't find anything good to say until 8 or 10 or 12 complaints in, and you call them out like, really? Well, if it's that bad, get rid of it. Well, no, well, it's a good car. I couldn't tell. So far, I've heard everything that's wrong with it. And that's one of the reasons why I love asking people when I'm out and about and things like that is, what do you like best about? And it's interesting how long it takes people sometime to think about what they like about something. And a couple of them, just for fun, and you guys can try this out as an experiment. If you ask somebody what they like about something, and they have that painful pause while they try to think of it, they go, well, is there anything you don't like about it? Oh, what I don't like about it, well, ding, 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 ding. They can roll them off like the digits on the fuel pump or a gas station pump nowadays. And with protective empathy, you can look at them and go, wow, for real. For real. How would you describe your life? Well, just. And have you noticed how you feel around them? What do they do to your energy? I wanted to bring this up, like I said, because the holidays are here. We've made it through one big one. 2 left to go. What are you gonna do different? And we have to mentally, I believe, mentally prepare ourselves for those things, along with, oh my goodness, the energy hits that the planet has been going through. I don't know if you guys knew this, but in the last week, we got hit with a sunburst that the weather people like got giddy about, like big time. There's a YouTube weather guy that I like to follow now, and I'll check him out. Ryan Hall, y'all. Ryan Hall, y'all. Very knowledgeable on about the weather, his predictions, his channel's predictions, all that have been very, very impressively accurate, I'll say it. And the other cool thing is on the ones that he was wrong, he calls himself out on it. A weatherman that goes, Yeah, last week when I said that this was going to hit like this, and it didn't. That's weather, but I was wrong. Just wanted to let you guys know, but he even when he talked about this sunburst that hit us this week, made me kind of bummed out that I wasn't back up in Minnesota, because the northern lights there were 9.5 or higher out of 10. They were seen all the way, I believe, just south of Iowa into Oklahoma, Nebraska, which is crazy. And as a result, electronics were having some issues. Us humans, being life forms that run off of energy, some were having a little bit of challenges. Some emotional, what the what? Including myself. Yes, the human side of me popped out. Luckily, we're on 4 acres and I've got enough projects to go be by myself for a while. So we do what we got to do. But they're predicting there's going to be some more coming up. So watch yourself, watch others, watch your energy. Figure out ways to prepare to protect yourself, especially against the chronic complainers. And realize that's not your energy, and you are not required to take it on. You can listen, you can utilize your protective empathy, and then you can escape and shake it off. You get back to your awesome self. And there are people, like the people that tune in here, that can always help you with any of those challenges. My phone is always on for any of you. Drop me a line, send me a text. Don't be afraid, ashamed, or any of the above. We all need a little help sometimes, even me. And that brings us 17 minis to finish the third. But anybody got any comments, ahas, epiphanies on that topic?
Yeah. Preemptive negativity and bad hypnosis words, which I keep picking myself up on. And I'm actually going to pick up that one on this sort of preemptive negativity that, yes, poop happens, but if you expect it to happen, it's far more likely to happen. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. It cracks me up, especially with the chronic complainers. And they'll be like, yeah, so it went just as bad as you expected it would. Or did it go as bad as you wanted it to? Well, what do you mean? Well, you poured so much energy into how bad it was going to turn out. What did you expect the universe to provide you? You put in the order, the universe delivered. Who manifested what? Who manifested who? So you can go in knowing there's going to be a scorpion there. You don't have to expect it to sting you. Just keep an eye on where the stinger is. Dance when you have to. Leave when you need to. Anybody else got anything before we move on to the last topic? All right. Deserving of love. Anybody got any idea of their rendition of what that means? Deserving of love. Sounds kind of straightforward, but
I often think deserving of love, but also teaching people how to treat you. So teaching people how to love you and how to treat you.
and a lot of that is going to come down to past programming and what we allow our younger versions to tell us what that means. And a number of my clients that are going through triple P right now with the dating are realizing that part of the reason they were having so many challenges finding a partner, in fact, or at least finding a partner that treated them well, was their belief on them being deserving of love. And it came as quite a shock to a couple of them. Because it's pretty easy for us to state, well, yeah, I deserve love. Yeah, I deserve to be loved. But that's a pretty wide open definition. What does love mean to you? If you grew up in a very loving, giving, empathetic family environment, that'll be your definition of love. If you grew up in a very narcissistic, angry family environment, your definition of love can be completely different. In fact, true love may feel very foreign. It may almost feel fake. If you grew up in a very dysfunctional, fighting family, or you were ignored heavily, again, your definition of deserving of love could be so different from what you see in others. And then, of course, you watch movies, the Hallmark Channel. Oh my goodness. And you're like, what is that? That's only in fairy tales. Until you meet somebody who grew up with a proper definition of love and deserving of it, and they find a partner who matches that and can offer that up. And in 18 years of being around the wedding industry and attending and being part of more weddings than a straight single white guy should ever have to be subjected to, I will tell you that when those kind of people meet, the ones who have that deserving of true love and understanding it and love themselves when they meet, Ray Charles can see that that's a match. And luckily, I got to see that a handful of times. Unfortunately, it was only a handful, but wow, when I saw it, watching those two people together, and I've been right so far because I'm still friends with 4 or 5 of them on Facebook, and that matchup is still there. But I also remember a few of the weddings that I did where even Ray Charles could see it was not a match. They were fighting at the dance right after the ceremony. Like, wow, Divorces Are Us is right around the corner. And sure enough, sadly, my intuition was spot on. I had 3 couples that didn't even make it long enough to pick up their wedding album. Yep. Which, of course, when there was one couple that didn't contact us for almost a year and a half regarding their wedding album, and got extremely angry when that was right at the crossover of technology. The digital files to create that and print from had been taken off of the server of the print shop that we worked with, the professional print shop. And I was like, no offense, we sent you a couple of reminders, ain't heard from you for like 18 months. We got some wedding albums that they didn't make it. Do you want one of theirs? But back to deserving of love. One of the things with Triple P is for me to help my clients clean up the limiting beliefs also around their ability and their deserving of loving themselves, number one, and receiving and deserving love from others, especially their perfect partner. And I think it has to continue on, and I don't think it's ever too late for anybody to work on that one in particular. I know of a number of relationships that it's not that they're apart like this, but they're staying together like this instead of like this, because there's just enough of that incongruity in the relationship that they can't quite seem to get that link working out. But they'll stay together for whatever reasons they may have. Watched it many times as a bar stool therapist when I was bartending. Anybody got any input ahas, takeaways on this in the last 5 minutes we got? Yes, Lenore.
I always found the concept of self-love to be a beautiful one and a confusing one, because I did not grow up hearing the words. I did not ever hear the concept until I was probably in my mid-20s. And it was foreign to me, and I've gotten much more used to the idea, thankfully. And I find it to be one of those things that are constantly unfolding and going deeper and expanding and building upon. So it is a very, very interesting concept when you start to learn it as an adult. If you were not raised in an idea of to love yourself, what does that mean? What does that look like? It is literally like learning another language.
I agree, and thanks for bringing that up, because I think a lot of it also depends on environment. And I could be wrong, but I think it's a little harder for guys because, guys, we hear self-love and we're like, well, yeah, that's what you do after the date doesn't work out, just to. But still, everybody needs to have that ability, that understanding to know that if you can't have that love for yourself, that love in yourself, you can't pour out of an empty cup. You can't give what you don't have. And that's why I work so hard with my clients to help build that introspective, that ability to clean out whatever's holding them back from the past, those stories that are not serving them, the events that need to have the lessons extracted so that they can let the rest of the shice go. And once they've reached that point, I think it builds both, I think, deserving of love. That understanding also helps with protective empathy, because you have enough of that self-love to look at other people when they're hurting and understand that it's something that they're going through. Any more comments or input on that before we switch over?
I'd be curious to know, did anybody else grow up with the idea of self-love? They understand it? Did they ever hear about it until they were an adult?
I think that the self-help movement of the 70s and 80s kind of opened up that hatchway into that. And unfortunately, it also brought a whole lot of other, I'm okay, you're okay. You just need more confidence. But we did get the idea of forgiving our past stuff and being able to recognize the lessons in it and moving forward.
I find forgiveness to be such an interesting concept. I think to forgive yourself, especially if you're doing younger self work and you think, you really didn't know any better at the time. Nobody was watching out for you at that moment that it occurred. Nobody was there to stop it, and you didn't know any better. And why would you? And having that dialogue, I think is really, really powerful. But I also think, at least from my perspective with HMR and the things that people have walked me through, in the idea of, especially when it comes to abuse of any kind, I could honestly tell you, I don't forgive them. They should have known better. But letting it vent and then being able to move beyond that and simply say, and if that is, and that may be forgiveness, and it's simply how I don't label forgiveness. I think forgiveness is, at least in my brain, it's like, that's okay, you're excused. And that's probably not what other people, this is an interesting topic. What do you all think forgiveness is? What does forgiveness look like to you?
Right into the second hour. Here we go. Perfect segue. And for those of you that are
very excited about this
platform or watching the recording for the first time, this is where I let the whole panel answer first so that I can learn. And if there's anything I think I can add, I add that at the end. So Fran gets to start it off.
Okay. About forgiveness, abuse, and all the above. Yeah, it's a huge topic. But I would suggest that there are not a lot of abuses, bad events that people cannot, if they give themselves the right mindset, actually grow something positive out of, even really bad situations. Now, it does depend on the mindset of the person and how willing they are to think outside of the anger and the revenge and the hurt and the outrage that this shouldn't have happened. That's the big shift. If people are able to sort of make that shift outside of that, sometimes they can see that there are gifts in the awful stuff, that they've made some people deeply caring and aware of other people's needs. They've created whole networks to support others who've gone through the same difficult situation. And if you put two different people in the same situation, you may get totally different responses. One person may just perpetuate this down the line and be very angry, and the other person may do something really positive with it. But the poop puts us to our mettle, where we can decide who we are, and we can always change our minds.
Awesome. Thanks. Thank you for sharing that, Fran. Anybody else got something to add to that?
Well, forgiveness isn't contrition. Contrition is, I'm so sorry, can you forgive me? And I think we're starting to circle around, we're trying to focus on what it is, but we seem to be saying what it is not. It's not, hanging on to the anger. It's not hanging on to the hurt, but, trying to get to the core of what forgiveness is. I'd like to hear everybody's feedback on that.
I agree. It's not saying you are absolved. It's a case of you are accountable, but I will not let this hold me back.
There.
Love the choice of words, guys.
Yes. Holly.
I'll try to keep my comments kind of brief. This is one of my passion areas. But first of all, I think part of the confusion is I believe there are two meanings for the word forgiveness. There's what I call a tier 1 forgiveness and tier 2 forgiveness. And tier 2 forgiveness is where I say, hey, it's a restoration of trust. I guess it could probably go beyond that. Even that doesn't necessarily mean you're saying that what happened is okay, but you're saying, in spite of everything that's happened, I'm okay trusting you again. Let's try out this relationship again, that sort of thing. Tier 2 is earned. Tier 1 forgiveness, I believe, and this is kind of what we were saying earlier about, I believe that first of all, and this part of my faith has been tested lately, But I don't believe, I think there's kind of a natural protection in the universe that nobody gets something that's stronger than what they're able to bear. And so whatever somebody does to you, if it's going to be something you can't handle, I believe the universe will kind of step in and stop it. One of the stories I always go to on this one is when I was many years ago, I used to be a piano teacher, and somebody in my church said, there's a girl in our church that her parents are drug addicts, but, you know, I want her to have somewhere healthy to go. And anyway, so she asked if I'd teach her piano for a little bit. And I did. And the first time I met her, I had this, it was a really weird experience. I almost felt like I should like bow down and worship her. Her spirit was so bright and so incredible. And I was thinking, oh, well, you know, maybe with drug addicted parents, you know, I don't know who she is, but clearly she's very strong. And anyway, years later, I was going through America's Most Wanted for my region, and I saw her. I'm like, oh my gosh, I know who she is. And I mean, I won't go into the details, but she had done something truly horrific. And the first thought I thought was, you know, this is truly horrific, but if there is somebody out there who is strong enough to handle it, it's her. And so I think a lot of times, first of all, we have to remember, you know, forgiveness for ourselves and forgiveness for somebody else. We don't know, as was previously said, we don't know what somebody else's strengths are, what their weaknesses are. We don't know how they're going to handle it. So it's kind of unfair for us to even judge what they're going through. But anyway, what I believe it is, this tier 1 forgiveness, is that the universe won't give us anything harder than what we can handle. And if we allow it, it is capable of turning anything bad that happens into us into a life lesson and an opportunity for growth. And so when we say we're taking the forgiveness, I think a lot of times we think that we have this image of they owe us, and so we get a say in what their punishment is. We get a say on what they're going to have to do. And so this forgiveness is not saying that what they did is okay. It is not saying that they don't deserve punishment. It is not saying I'm going to restore trust. None of those are on the list. But what is on the list is saying I'm going to let go of this victim status. I'm not going to live as a victim. I'm going to transform this into something positive. I'm going to transform this into growth, into opportunities for, you know, lessons. That doesn't mean that happens overnight either. It means that I'm going to surround myself. I'm going to give myself time. I'm going to be patient with myself as I get over what happened to me. And I'm going to transform this horrible thing that happened into something good. And so, you know, so it's also saying, hey, you know what? There is karma here. There is judgment. Maybe society is going to put you in jail, whatever. But I am letting go of my voice in that, and I'm turning it over to society, to God, whatever, to worry about making this right, making it right for them and making it right for me. Because I trust karma. I trust that whatever I get, it's going to be amazing to repay me for what I went through if I allow it. Now, once again, that's if I allow it. Because somebody gave this example of what if somebody stole $1,000 from you and somebody else came and said, you know what, I'm sorry they stole $1,000. I'm working with them. I will refund you $10,000. How many people would say, well, I'm not taking it because I want the right to still be angry. I want the right to still drag them through the court. You know, you have to accept that gift. You're not going to be forced to take it. And so I believe forgiveness is accepting that gift. It's being willing to let go of that victim status and being willing to take that growth and those lessons. And then also saying, you know, once again, it's not that you don't deserve justice, but it's not my job to create justice because I trust that there's already a mechanism in place. And once again, this is where I get, you know, a little religious, but whether it's in this life or, you know, after this life or whatever, I believe that all debts will be paid both directions. And if you happen to, you know, do what you need to do to turn your life around, I'm not the one that has to judge that either. You know, all of that's between you and karma, you and God, you and society, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to continue to live my life. So anyway.
Awesome. Thank you, Holly. That was awesome.
Yeah, brilliant, Holly. And I've got to jump in with a whole load of stuff. And to a large degree, I absolutely agree with you that if it doesn't kill you, you can survive it, which is kind of obvious. But if you've survived it, if while it's happening, I don't know if this is universal, but I suspect it may be, your body, if you're experiencing something awful, really awful at the time, and I can't say this is true, but this is maybe my experience, that you actually disassociate from the situation at the time, that you kind of leave your body. and whatever's happening is happening to the body, but it's not happening to you. And your self can be separate, discrete, and untouched. I don't know if this is universal. Forgiveness of self, I think, is more difficult than forgiveness of others. If somebody has perpetrated something terrible to you, even if they have no regrets or contrition or would try to continue it, your job for you is not to be bowed down by it, to thrive and be strong in its face, because that's your ultimate revenge. By being strong, because if you take on that awfulness as somehow being your fault, it crushes you for the rest of your life. And perpetrators often try and push the blame onto the victim. Mm-hmm. That's where the toxicity happens. And getting over that belief is one of the hardest things, because it does linger, because very often it happens when people are little and they believe adults. And often there's, you can't tell, or you believe you're protecting your family by not telling. I have been reflecting on things that I have done in my life that I'm not proud of, that I wish I'd done differently, but I didn't. And coming back from that can be really hard, and facing up to it can be really hard. And creating that space to allow yourself to forgive yourself. I started watching a lot of, sorry to go on. I started watching a lot of YouTubes and TED Talks from people who had committed murder and how they came back from their awful crime, how you can redeem yourself. And that's been an interesting journey. And nobody does anything for no reason. That there's always something way back that caused this chain of events. And though I've kind of gone round in a circle, I'll be quiet now.
Just before we get to Linda, I wanted to add a couple of things. One, sometimes the best revenge is to become the best form of yourself possible. To let them know that, yeah, you took a dump on my life, but I've risen above that. And I've become a much better version of myself, not only in spite of it, but because of it.
Sorry to jump in again, but quite a lot of my clients have actually had sexual abuse in their childhood. And to make them feel okay and normal in spite of this, with this, is kind of important so that they can find their self-acceptance, because they often feel very tainted by it. And to normalize it is okay.
Yeah. The other part I wanted to add was you asked about how some people will go offline and encapsulate. Dr. David has a very good talk about that, and they've proven that if you had like a graph where things get worse and worse and worse, but 10 means death, when you reach a certain level, like 9.95, your body, in order to protect you, will go offline, and it will take that information and it will encapsulate it and put it away. That's why a lot of people who go through major traumatic events, will come out and they don't remember what happened because the memory of it, the experience of it was too much. And you have to be in a very, very protective environment to delve into that, to unpack what happened. The one of the biggest things that they need to know and realize is getting the message into that package that you've survived. A lot of PTSD is inside of those packages, and those packages are running 24/7, 365, and they're still taking up energy. And that's where a lot of people will have these activating moments, these triggers, and they don't know what it is. It's just something happens, and so they come to professionals like us, where we can let them know that they're in a safe, protected environment. Whatever happened inside of there, you've survived. Whatever happened inside of there had lessons, and that's all you need. You don't need anything else out of there. You need the lessons and the knowledge that you survived. If you need to know what it was, that's okay. As long as you, all the versions of you, accept the fact you survived it. Fran.
Sorry, I have to put another little. One of the things about what I mean about normalizing is basically a reframe. And if you can actually get humor into it, I know it sounds absolutely not what they're going to do, but you can make people laugh about this stuff. You can make people laugh about the ridiculousness of the whole situation. And once you can get them laughing, the whole pressure goes right down.
Yeah, which is part of the protocol when I teach them that the words they may have heard don't have any energy except for the energy they give them. When I have them specifically change the energy in the words, they can be saying the same vicious, vile, nasty things while chuckling and laughing, because it wasn't the words themselves, it was the energy they put into the recording. And Linda, you've been very patient. Thank you. Your turn.
Okay. I would say that forgiveness is a combination of understanding, allowance, and repair. I know it's possible to forgive understanding, but I still think it's a critical piece to understand why somebody did something. And we don't mean in the details. Well, they did that because they're in pain, or they did that because they were focused on something else, or they did that because they're trying to gain status, or they did that for whatever. So I don't think it's necessary to have an in-depth understanding, but I think some basic idea of why somebody did something. And I think the next step is allowance. And that means, okay, I give. I'll give this time. I'll yield. You cross the line, you cross the boundary, you hurt my feelings, whatever it is you did. And in this time, I give. All right. I'm not going to be a hard ass. I'm going to let it slide. And I'm not going to hold a grudge. And I'm going to basically, out of understanding, let it go. And I think the third step is repair, because you have to repair that damage, I think, to some degree. I don't think you can forgive somebody while still holding onto the wound. So you either have to self-repair the wound or repair damage to the relationship, whatever it might be, or in some way, if there's been injury, it needs to be addressed in some way. You can't carry the injury. You can, remember what somebody did, but I don't think you can walk around feeling the injury and truly forgive someone. So I would say it's a combination of understanding, allowance, and repair.
Thank you. I fully agree. Fran?
I was going to say, yeah, it's really great if you can find a reason that you can rationalize, but sometimes you can't. And then you have to just create a space where you can say, okay, shit happens. Sometimes you'll never know why. And to actually allow yourself to let go of that one where it's not possible to find the underneath reason, because otherwise you'll stay tangled up in it forever.
Yep, correct. Holly?
A couple things. First of all, one thing that keeps coming through my mind too is I think another thing with forgiveness is a process. And sometimes we talk about it like it's a light switch. You just turn it on, boom, I've forgiven you. And I think that if you're doing the process, you could say, I am in the process of forgiving them, or I have forgiven them because I'm in that process, so to speak. But another thing, just a quick comment about just self-forgiveness. Now, of course, a lot of this is getting understanding. A lot of times you weren't even guilty at all. You're blaming yourself for something somebody else did, all that sort of thing. But let's say you've gone through all those processes and you actually genuinely hurt somebody else and you really were responsible. I think step one, there is an extra step to this because it is in your control. You do have a responsibility to take responsibility for it. If you can make restitution, now this is where it gets a little bit weird. I think you have to offer. You never force restitution. Because if you could cause more problems than you solve if you force it on them. Maybe they are scared of you. Maybe they don't, but you do your part, you offer it. And then these principles, I think, are still true on the other side. It sometimes feels unfair to say it because you're saying it for somebody else. But yes, the body has built-in functions. And I mean, this may sound terrible, but at a certain point, you can't hurt somebody beyond a certain point or, they will leave their body. It's whether it's they dissociate or they actually literally leave their body. So there are built-in protections. And they have that opportunity of accepting the gift of turning it into something beautiful, turning it into a learning lesson. And they also have the offer of restitution from you. So once you've done your part, it is their job to do the other part. No matter what you did, you can't do the other part for them. And if they choose not to do it, it's not your job, but it's also none of your business. And so, you've got to say, this is not my business. If, I'm here, if they ever want to reach out, I know what I'll do. But if they choose, they don't want to, maybe they've already gotten to that healing point. They just don't want to do it with you. And that's fine too. So at that point, you're allowed to say, okay, I'm going to let karma run its course. I've done what I can do and I'm going to move on. I've learned the lessons. I know what I'm going to do differently forward so this doesn't happen again. And I'm going to close this chapter in my life.
Awesome. Thank you, Holly. That's what I like about the karma police. Now, Fran and Mark both have their hands up. Who gets to go first?
Ladies first.
Thank you. I'll just be very quick that sometimes I've found that even a fantasy revenge is wonderful, even before you start going into things like 3-chair therapy. But a fantasy revenge and sharing that with somebody can be so delicious.
Yes.
And powerful.
Mark.
I think, like I said, again, the earlier topic, self-love, you have to give up. You have to get the person, if you're working with them, to give up the label of victim or survivor, or even more basic, the first sort of the mind is good, bad. And when something happens to them, they tend to blame themselves. So they think of themselves as bad. You got to get them to give up that label. And if the label, and you have to, gain power from that, that energy that we all have within us somewhere, that to, learn to love ourselves again. And I think that's where the true strength of forgiveness lies, is within the heart, within the soul of, but you have to give up they have to give up those labels as victim or survivor or just bad. And, once they can do that, then they can, learn to love themselves again.
Absolutely. Fran.
And the ability to do that is a lot to do with having a choice. If you have created a space where you can make a choice of what you will do about it, then you've got a choice of forgiving, not forgiving. You've got seeing the choices. The victim thinking is because you haven't had a choice. You've been stuck there without choices. So choice equals freedom. And if you give them choice, then they're free. They can get themselves free of it.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm glad that you mentioned some of the other protocols that we can use to help get into that situation with 3-chair and the hologram deck and things of that nature. In the end, I believe the goal is whatever solution fits. And that's what I like about the karma police, because especially when I like using with my clients, allowing the karma police to deliver the what is it, the whatever needs to be done to have it delivered in the most appropriate fashion. And in that wording, it allows for quite a wide variety of things that can be done. Again, revenge is not a bad thing. Sometimes we need to feel revenge or avenged to let that energy feel like it can dissipate. But if that's what it takes to be able to drop the ball, get rid of the poison, move forward, then let the karma police deliver that revenge in the most appropriate way. And when you feel that it has been done, then you can allow yourself to move forward into the life that you deserve and start accepting 100% of that ability to be deserving of love. Holly.
That reminds me, I think I have shared this in this group before, but one of the things I'll sometimes do too, because sometimes somebody really needs to get revenge on the evil thing that happened to them, but that will come in a person who also, like, say it's mom or whatever, that person had a beautiful side that took care of them and everything too. So what I will do for somebody who's struggling with that is I'll give them the option to create 3 avatars. So they bring the person forward, and then they split the person. I say, every one of us, the quantities might be different, but every one of us has 3 parts to us. There's the part of us that's loving and healthy. There's the part of us that's hurt and may do things just because it's hurt. And then there's the part that's truly evil. And, for some people, that truly evil might be almost nothing. And for some people, that truly evil might be 90%. Who knows what it is. But go ahead and allow this person to come forward and split into these 3 avatars. The beautiful person who's healthy, and allow that go in. The person who's hurting and may have done something to you, but they, it came from a place of hurt. They didn't understand. They couldn't see through their pain. And that's why they did it. And then the part of them that just enjoys pain, maybe, or is a little, whatever it may be. And then what I'll do is I'll let them choose what to do with each of the avatars. And so they'll often, for the person who's hurting, one of the most common place they like to send them is a place that I didn't come up with this. Somebody I was working with came up with this, but it's the ancestral home of healing. And so what I'll do is I'll bring guards down that will escort the hurt person to the home of healing so that they can rehabilitate. And then I can let them do whatever karma they want to do on the evil avatar, if there's anything left. Sometimes there might not even be. And then they can make peace with the positive version of the person who wanted to be good, but just couldn't be because of these other parts that were there. But yeah, I noticed that people are able to get that, should we call it revenge or whatever, karmic revenge, a lot better on the pure evil version than when they have all three mixed together.
Wow. What a great insight. Thank you for sharing that.
Can I add that one of my personal protocols is that if there's something that I feel is affecting my life that is, a really bad, dark influence, that I have a particular portal of education and redemption where this energy can be sent to find peace and understanding and growth in its own terms. And if it's on its own terms, that energy out of my body is much easier to get rid of. So it can even exercise its evilness without damaging anybody or anything, but it's out of me. And though it might sound a little bit of a strange protocol, it works for me that I can get these parts that either have been imposed on me or are of me. I can move them on by allowing that part to express its nature in a place where it's not going to hurt anybody, and also be educated, and over time, which is not on human time, can evolve in its own way toward the light or whatever you want to call it.
And that's the best part about that, and thank you, Fran, for sharing it, is our subconscious will accept activity, whether it's in the thought up realm or physical, which is why our thoughts are so important. Our self-talk is so important. Our subconscious doesn't care if it's physical in front of us and we can grab it. That's good and bad. The good part is exactly what you just brought up, Fran, is we have the ability to go into a hypnotic state, go into a hologram deck or three chair or any of those things, and be able to face the dragon, fight the dragon in a safe place, knowing that it I almost hate to say it, but it's almost like a video game in there. When we
Even
know that we're
understanding the dragon, sometimes it's necessary to even understand the dragon, and
Yep.
totally alien to a lot of people. They don't want to know, but sometimes that's the best way to defeat it.
Absolutely. And that's the part where once we understand that we are in a safe place and we have a professional person there guarding the gate, our clients can go in, face the dragon that they have built up to be so huge. And sometimes simply in facing it, they turn around and the dragon is like, it's this big. And they're like, no, wait. You were like 7 heads and, the size of Mount Rushmore. But when they turned and said, you will not define who I am, I have survived this situation, that dragon comes down to a manageable little thing. and you can decide whether you let it live or not.
And I thank all the things that happened to me, because I wouldn't be the person I am now. I wouldn't have learned the things I learned. I wouldn't have gained the strengths I needed. I would be somebody so different, living a really boring life. And, it's given me opportunities and strengths and understandings that I would have never had before. And the ability to scare people myself if I need to.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up, Fran, because in the quantum of possibilities, every single one of us could have been a million other people. And it's what we've survived, what we've experienced, what we've gone through, what we've learned, all the above that brought us here right now today. And I keep going back to and we did the best we could at the time with the tools, the knowledge, the energy we had available to us. If we could have done better, we would have. And where would we be today if we had chosen the different path? There are people like Joe Dispenza and those people that could be a little heavy for newbies, that are like, well, all of those possibilities are out there. They're still alive. Our present thinking is the one that we're in right now. And that's where future pacing and all those things come into play, because we can test out those different options and find out if there's any landmines or potholes or bucket of gold in that fragment, that different alternate. But it also allows us to understand, once we've let go of this one episode that happened in one of our fragments, where do we get to go from there? Who are we allowed to become once we've faced the dragon, shrunk it down to a manageable size, and decided what we want to do with it? Which is why people come to us, why we need more people like us on the planet. One of the things I was going to bring up a little bit earlier was I've gotten into some energetic discussions, we'll call it, with certain people who are getting paid as therapists, who really rub me the wrong way, because my rendition of what they do is, hey, welcome back. Good to see you again for the third year in a row. Now, let's talk about that thing that happened to you 10 years ago. Go ahead, pull the Band-Aid off. Go ahead, dig in there. Tell me how much it hurts. Remember, tell me how it happened again. Oh, yeah. How did it hurt? Oh, yeah. What's the pain feel like? Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, time's up. Put the Band-Aid on. I'll see you next week for the next 10 years. And nothing changes. And they're robbing these people by letting these people come in and feel the pain and relive the experience over and over and over and over with no cure in sight.
That's just re-traumatizing them over and
Absolutely.
over, making it bigger and stronger. And sorry to change direction, but aren't we awesome that we and our clients have survived these dragons? You know, it takes a pretty amazing person to survive the dragon, and our clients have done that, and we've done that.
And sadly, a vast number of the ones that we can't get to don't, which makes the importance of training more people with our gift all that more important. And there's so many, for those of you that are just tuning in or watching this recording for the first time, please reach out to any of us. There are so many good trainings out there. There are so many amazing trainers that you don't have to do this full time. I know a number of students that I got to be friends with Dr. David's trainings. They came in basically to work on themselves, learn skills, and took it back to their workplace, and they're still working their same job, but they have amazing stories of people that they just happen to meet, things that happened in public because they learned that they can do this stuff anytime, anywhere, for any reason. Airports, people freaking out. Great place to find people that are forced into a situation to face a dragon they don't like because they don't like flying. And there they are, watching the minutes tick down to where they got to get in that big metal tube and go way above the ground where they might crash and die. And that energy is abundant. And I've seen people that are just have a little bit of interest in this, and they learn a couple of really cool little skills, and they've been able to help people just like that.
Dr. David says that, if you come into the trainings to work on yourself, that's just normal stupid. But the people that do what we would like to do, and help others, that's a special kind of stupid.
Guilty as charged.
High
And
five.
yep. I those of you that know me and those that don't, I did not go in looking for this. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time with an open mind. And I've said it many, many times. If I'd have known that Dr. David was doing hypnosis, I would have bounced. Because I had seen enough stage hypnosis stuff, ran sound for him, and all the above. There's a difference between the two, and I have full respect for stage hypnotists. That is a skill set I haven't learned yet, although many of them that do it, including Dr. David, have told me I should be a stage hypnotist as well because of my many years of DJing and entertaining and loving to make people laugh. But my true what makes me tick is to help people have a better life. because you don't have to walk around with all this luggage on your back. You got it this far. You can let it go. And I've told a couple of people, sometimes you just have to understand that you can set the luggage outside the front door. Nobody's going to steal it. You can pick it up in the morning if you want. But at least leave it outside the house so you can sleep.
And I think one of the best things about doing these sorts of trainings is that every time you work with a client, you heal yourself that little bit more as well, incidentally on the side. So you feel really good too.
Isn't it amazing how the universe will send you certain things you need to work on yourself, and you're just like, what you're describing sounds mighty familiar. Now, if it was me, this is what I would do. Yeah, guilty as charged and happy about it and all the above. And we got 14 minis left. Wow. That's what I love about the second hour of Triple T. I don't want it planned because sometimes these amazing, in-depth, needed topics just rise to the top. And the information that comes out as a result of them, gold. So, 13 minis left. Anybody got anything else to add to this, or do we have some hidden questions or topics to finish off the hour?
Can we talk more about bad hypnosis, as in what we are unconscious about, what's coming out of our mouths that will unintentionally influence people? You know, I am hearing other people doing bad hypnosis more, but I'm still having difficulty picking it up in myself. And I know I do it. And sometimes I catch it a second or two after I've said it and think, oh, what have I done? But what's other people's experience of when you inadvertently say words like, I can't even think of an example of bad hypnosis, but when you're preempting a negative situation unintentionally, just by your choice of words. Do you know what I mean?
First thing I want to say that I'm very proud that you have a hard time coming up with a really good example quickly, because that tells me what kind of person you are.
I know for years I did bad hypnosis. There's a guided relaxation script in one of my good clinical practice books. And I would sit there with the book up in front of me, between me and the client, and I would be reading it. And then when I got training with HypnoThoughts, I realized, oh shit, I've been doing bad hypnosis for decades.
Script hypnosis?
Yeah, I put a barrier up between me and the individual, me and the client, and I just read from the book.
Yes.
You know, that's bad hypnosis.
Well, the type of bad hypnosis I was particularly thinking of is the inadvertent bad suggestions that we make, that we actually inadvertently tell people that they're going to feel bad about something when it's just part of our normal conversation. But we have to be so aware. We have got powerful words coming out of our mouths. Everybody has, but we have even more, that we have to be very mindful of the words we say and how we say them.
Oh, how long has anxiety controlled your life? Oops. They're like, oh, yeah, it has.
all of that, and similar things. And when we're making great pronunciations on how things should be, and we get our words screwed up.
Holly's got her hand up.
The first thing I want to point out is I think that because we call each other out on it, that's how we have to figure it out. And what you were saying about, sometimes you might notice it slips out of your mouth, but also notice that you noticed it and that you're getting better at it. And, I will say one that I'm trying to get away with a little bit, and I'm not necessarily the best at it because it's kind of ingrained in me, but sometimes I'll say, go back to the first time, that something happened to include this or whatever, or what limiting belief is behind this. And, 99 times out of 100, there is a limiting belief. There is an experience. But by saying it, I'm making a presumption that there is one. So I'm trying to be better about making sure there is one before I go there, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think, we talk about the 4 stages of consciousness. You've got the unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and conscious, unconscious competence. We're in that process, and we're kind of in that conscious competence. And the only way we're going to get, maybe we are in all 4 at different times. Like, I think when we work with a client, at least me, I'm much more mindful of the words that are coming out of my mouth. But it's when we call each other out, it's when we notice it, that's how we're going to get to that unconscious competence. It's that constant feedback.
Well said, Holly. And I want to also point out a different style of bad hypnosis, which I've been trained in because I need to unpack its effects. And there are what I call dark triad hypnotists. And there's some very dark stuff out there. And I've had a few, about 4 guys come to me. And in the consultation that I offer, they wanted me to teach. They wanted to know if I teach some of the dark triad stuff. And
what do you mean by dark triad, TJ?
What's that?
What do you mean by dark triad stuff?
Embedded commands for usually when it's the guys, they want to know how to use hypnosis to control women, to get them to do things that they wouldn't normally do. We'll leave it at that. And the guys that have shown up, not only did I make sure that, I don't think we're a fit, and I'm not sure where you would find that information, but I also made sure that a few of the people that knew what that information was understood that we had another person snooping around for that information. The main reason that I learned it was because I had female clients come to me that had that used on them effectively. And you have to understand how the bomb was built to be able to go in and defuse it. And here I am admitting that I know how to use it, and that's why I record every session that I do, to make sure that I have accountability and recording to prove that I didn't utilize that technology, because it's pretty sick. Ironically, we also have a lot of hypnotic language patterning and embedded commands in stuff that we observe daily. If you understand hypnotic patterns and stuff like that, and you start watching television or watching debates and speeches, you start seeing through the patterns, and you're like, oh, look at you, you little sly thing.
And it's only going to take one to know one, though. So, having people able to call you out on it is very limited field.
Yeah. In fact, there's a class that Dr. David teaches about sales hypnotic language patterning. And he pulls a recording from a certain person whose conference I attended, and fell right into the hypnotic language patterning and did exactly what it was intended to. And I tell you what, the first time when he puts all of he puts all the phrases, everything the person says up on the screen, and then dissects it and shows the hypnotic language patterning and the embedded commands and the mechanics behind all of it. I was like, I would. And finally, I'm like, I was at that conference, and I was one of the ones that ran to the back and called my credit card company and had them raise my limit, and paid a whole lot for their product. Yeah. And so another part is you don't have to want to be a therapist like we are to have a good reason to understand how hypnotic language patterning, embedded commands, NLP works. It also helps protect you from the people that understand it and utilize it against you. That gives us 2 minutes to say, now all of this dark stuff that was a little heavy is just information that you can utilize to make yourself have a much better day, a much better life, and an incredible year coming up next year. Because the more you know, the more you can defend yourself, and the easier it will be for you to have protective empathy, which will protect your energy. Understand that scorpions do what scorpions do, and that you are very deserving of love. And if you have any issues believing that, there's a whole bunch of people here that would be more than happy to help you get rid of the luggage, the baggage, and fight against the dragons that may have been put in your life to make you a better person. And with 1 minute left, remember that we're getting very close to that magical date where everybody comes up with their whole new outlook for the year, and they make all of their resolutions, revolutions, and I'm going to change. And last year, I asked a whole bunch of you to look forward to the year ahead. Write down who you were going to become, what you were going to be, you were going to accomplish, and then reverse engineer it so that you had a pathway to get to this point And so for the next couple of triple T's, I'm going to be pushing that subject again. Who do you want to be on January 1st, 2025? Get yourself a 1-year planner and reverse engineer what it's going to take to accomplish those goals. And who can help you with any challenges you think you may have. And so you can start working on it now so that when January 1st comes and everybody's going, what were your resolutions? You can say something better than, I think I'm going to lose weight. I think I'm going to make a little more money. You actually have a plan. What does a little more money look like? What does losing a little more weight look like? How are you going to go about doing it? And who can help you? And with that, we're a minute over. So it's time for me to say thank you guys again, for investing your precious commodity, your time, because it's one thing I cannot give back to you. And so your choice to invest it here on this platform with all of us means so much to me. 101 of these, I've had people take 2 hours of their life and invest it and share it with everybody here. I am eternally grateful, always will be. I love every single one of you. And you guys in YouTube, love you, Mom. And for those of you watching the recording still, thank you. I appreciate it. Be sure to hit the like and the subscribe and leave the comments, and please share this with people, because what we've come up with, I've gone back and watched a couple of these. I'm in awe at what you folks bring to the table. This is why I love the second hour. So again, thank you. And all those heart things and victories. And yes, absolutely. Go out and have an awesome week. Be kind to each other and make your world a much better place, because you deserve it. I believe in you.
Thank you, TJ. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.